There's some strange aspects to the way character design works, and oftentimes when we create characters, we might not know what we're actually doing. And in fact, nobody else may know either. And the best way to demonstrate that might be to point out that Batman is not a bat. And I don't mean that he's a human being, of course he is. I mean that his actual costume design, and particularly his mask, is not based on a bat. His mask is based on an animal, it's just a totally different animal. It really shocked me when I realized this, but it made a lot of sense when I thought about it. And if you don't want to think about it too much, I'll tell you. It's a Doberman. That's right, Batman's face design is actually based on a Doberman Pinscher dog. The straight ears, the relatively thick neck, and even the differently colored mouth. Actual bats, by comparison, tend to have very large or round ears, which often come off of their heads at an angle. And before the 1970s, that was much closer to the way Batman looked. But once the change was made, it's pretty much been kept as a dog. Now why is that? I think it's pretty interesting. The shape of a bat's head, with its natural ears, doesn't look strong or handsome on a human. Being a bat sounds cool, but doesn't look as cool, which is the whole joke of the satire character Deflator Mouse from The Tick. However, a Doberman actually has a head profile that looks strong and masculine for a human. The ears aren't too wide or distracting, but are still straight and distinctive. The neck is thick and strong, and the snout, which is a different color, is larger than the upper part of the head, giving the impression of a solid and powerful jawline. On top of that, Dobermans have been used for decades by the military, law enforcement, and security, especially in the mid-20th century, so a lot of people associate them with authority and fighting for good. So it seems like a natural fit. But, as natural as it may be, I actually don't think it was done on purpose. As creative people develop characters, they tend to go with what feels right, more so than what they can explain, especially if they're experienced with the creative process. And so in some ways, characters will drift away from their original guidelines and towards what makes them most effective over time, even if no one is actively aware of it. We talked about this before with Spider-Man, who started out as an awkward high school student, but who then became a handsome photographer who was fully grown, and who had a supermodel girlfriend, since superheroes are generally idealized role models for boys. But this doesn't just apply to superheroes. In horror movies, you might notice some very consistent traits in characters like Jason, Leatherface, and Michael Myers. Obviously, this is no accident. You could say they evolved that way because it's a very effective look for a stalking killer, especially because Jason didn't have that appearance until several movies into the Friday the 13th series. And of course, if you look closely at those characters, you probably will notice exactly what animal they resemble. Gray skin, dark eyes, large round bodies, moving slowly, being hard to find, and never talking. That's right, they're sharks. Great white sharks. Even their style of attack, where they suddenly appear, quickly tear you apart, and you aren't able to physically strike back, is like getting bitten by a shark in the water. Now obviously, we have a lot of natural fear associated with sharks, so that makes sense. But also, that type of facial expression is often what we find the most intimidating. Something that looks very angry or baring its teeth is often doing that because it doesn't really want to fight, and wants to indicate beforehand that it's a threat so it doesn't have to hurt you or be hurt by you. And if their angry expression is different from their normal expression, it means violence isn't common for them and not something they're used to. So we have a reaction to something, giving us a mean or vicious look, but it's not nearly as powerful as something that seems to have no emotion at all. Because actual predators, when they're stalking, do not want to give any sign of what they're doing. They look neutral, they stay quiet, they hide their weapons, and when it's time to strike, they do so without emotion, because they're simply getting food, not expressing any anger. And since these animals are the most capable and most willing to hurt us, we instinctively fear things that give us that predator vibe. But of course, Jason and his bros aren't the only great horror movie characters. There's another one who does give mean looks, and who dresses in noticeable colors, and doesn't hide himself or his weapons at all. And that's my personal favorite, Freddy Krueger. Why is he so different? It's because he's based on an animal too, but it's not the same one. He's got a wide hat that might resemble a hood, a striped body, and he has very long, thin knives that he likes to keep by his mouth. That's because Freddy is a snake. And not only that, he resembles a specific type of snake, a Cape coral cobra. And this might explain his personality, since snakes, for the most part, don't prey on humans, so they tend to give indications when they're angry and about to strike, like rattling or hissing. And of course, the snake doesn't go where you are. You end up not paying attention and you accidentally walk into the snake's area, which is when you get struck. Now, I haven't heard statements from all the creators about this, but like I said, I suspect this usually happens subconsciously. They tinker with the look of the character until it feels right. And in the last video, we mentioned that when you're trying to design products, your instincts can go astray if they're motivated by things outside the product. But if you manage to avoid that, or have a character get worked on by multiple people who have different side motivations, then instinct can become extremely powerful and lead you down the right path, even if you can't see where you're going. That's it for now. Like, comment, and subscribe, please, and I'll be back soon.